this takes me up to 1992, and I had a meeting with Chris Blackwell, and he had a project to do something for the 30th anniversary of Jamaican independence. He wanted to do a CD for every year of independence. But at that time, he'd sold the company to Polygram, a major. And of course, there's no way that a major record company at that time was going to reissue 30 CDs of reggae in the end of '93. You know, 5 a month or whatever. The accountants must have crapped themselves, because they didn't really understand that this was kind of an underground music. Not only the African Caribbean community worldwide, whether it's England, USA, Canada, they supported that music. And over the years of supporting that music by the African Caribbean community, white people got into it, white youth like myself when I was young. And the other guys I mentioned earlier, they got into it in the skinhead days and became loyal fans and collectors of music. But this music, it wasn't talked about in the mainstream music press. That was rock, like all of your, your Beatles, your Stones, all those type of things. And then all the groups like, or the sort of whole thing in the 70s with the people like Bowie and whatnot, they were getting the press, not reggae, not Jamaican music. Jamaican music was kind of looked down on, if I'm truthful. They didn't really dig it, Their ears weren't tuned to it. I remember when I started doing compilations for Blood and Fire, we'd go to Cedar Audio to get the digital restoration done off of my vinyl records that I transferred to burn to a CD, and then take them to Cedar to cut out the clicks and pops and the extraneous noise, at the same time trying to keep the warmth of the original vinyl. I remember going, and the guy, one time we put the CD on in the studio, and he said, well, I can hear the bass and I hear the tops, but where's the mid-range? I said, well, that's dub, What you want is you want the bass and you want the tops, and there's not much going on in the middle. Every so often you hear a guitar chop or a snatch of vocal or whatever on delay. That was the sum total of the mid-range in the dub. I did this compilation, got whittled down from 30 CDs, the compilation from Ireland, to a 4 CD set. And because it was Ireland had a certain clout. So I remember doing loads of phone interviews with people in the States who, I'm talking mainstream press, music press, who really had no idea that there was anything beyond Bob Marley in reggae. And I just put together this 4 CD set that only had 2 Bob Marley tracks on it. All the others were there, Ken Booth, etc., Buster, Nellis, Decca, right from ska days through to, what they call dancehall, like Shabba, people like that. So it was new to a lot of people. That was the impression that I got from these interviews. Anyway, that CD set was nominated for Best Compilation in any genre and won. So I got the trophy, some cheap-ass gold trophy mounted on a bit of wood that says tougher than tough, Island Records. Chris Blackwell, great man, gave me the chance to do the ska compilation in 79, 80. to do various other bits in the mid-70s, and in 1992 I got the gig to do this Tougher Than Tough 4 CD compilation, which, as I say, won an award. I remember going to the ceremony and looking out in the audience and, mumbling a speech saying, I'm delighted to receive this award on behalf of the Jamaican people who created this music. And I looked out and I see Tony Blair, the Prime Minister at the time. Either side of him were the two guys out of Oasis, the Gallagher brothers. That was when it was the days of Britpop,
The tracks that were vinyl sourced were from your collection?
On Tougher Than Tough, very few. Hard Man for Dead, the Buster track on there, that was off vinyl. Quite a few, the Winston Riley tracks were off a tape Winston gave me. The Bunny Lee tracks and the Ethiopians Reggae Hit the Tap. Bunny Lee gave me those tapes. With Jammy had a deal with Profile at the time, I remember. And I was offering 500 US for worldwide rights, non-exclusive. He said, boy, Steve, and he showed me an agreement he had with Profile where they're paying him $4,000 for a track. And he said, you want me to do this for 500? So he said, boy, okay. Good. In 91, when I first went to New York, I had a few days driving around with Jammy up and down Brooklyn to Bronx, Manhattan, and so on. When John and the other, his two sons, they were little toddlers, and so I knew Jammy from that time. And of course, him being a friend of Bunny Lee, Fat Man in the UK, I was able to make that link, Jammy, for me, the greatest producer of he's the equivalent of Coxon in terms of post-85 music, even though he started before, in the very late 70s. But when he came with a sling tech,
Yeah.
And of course, I was able to get those tracks and things like the Pinchers, Bandolero.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, Bandolero was selling like hot bread, and I still got it for $500 because of that connection, not because Jammy thought, he obviously knew it was worth more, and to anyone else, he would have got more. But luckily, he saw me as someone that was genuine, perhaps, I hope. And, he got royalties off of it, as did Bunny. Even when Blood and Fire stopped, Bunny said, I still get royalties off of Tougher Than Tough. So that's why I respect Chris Blackwood, because he's a Jamaican born, upper class, English educated, big jazz fan, Miles and all of that he likes, Miles Davis. And, he's not going to shortchange people like a lot of these European companies might do, because he's got to live in Jamaica. He's invested into Jamaica. He's got businesses in Jamaica, farm businesses, tourists, resorts. He bought Noel Coward's old house. He bought a house for Ernie Wrangling. I went round there and interviewed Ernie on the North Coast, beautiful house. And he said, yeah, Chris bought me this house, because he arranged My Boy Lollipop, which was on Tougher Than Tough,
Mm-hmm.
Recorded in London, but directed by Ernie Wrangling. Ernie Wrangling's, a world-class guitarist, same like Monty Alexander is a world-class jazz pianist. And there were others, Joe Harriet, Wilton Gaynow, all these guys who went to Alpha, you know, and learned the rudiments of music and went on out, left Jamaica and earned, you know, Dizzy Reese ended up recording for Blue Note. You know, he's an Alpha boy, you know, still around. Great player, great trumpeter. You know, so when you look at it, you know, music has been a much bigger export of Jamaica, much more than bauxite or ganja or tourism. You know, music has made Jamaica. And Jamaica makes music, and music made Jamaica. And that gave us things like dub, you know. Who would have thought of remixing a record and to distortion?
Were you aware at the time that there was no dub tracks included in the box set?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, didn't we were going to include, there was originally, like I say, it got chopped down from 30 CDs to 20 CDs. And then after I came back from Jamaica trying to license stuff, get some sort of verbal agreements, I came back to find that it was 4 CDs. I think one of the tracks that got cut, not by me, was King Tubby Meets the Rockers Uptown. Really, it was primarily about singers with a few instrumentals, you know. It should have been on there, let's face it. It was a record as a single that made a massive impression in the UK, wider than Jamaican music. I mean, you know, it's obviously, you know, a great record by Jacob Miller, you know, you know, Baby I Love You So. But the dub, wow, when people first heard that, they couldn't believe it. What is that? People would say to me, I knew what it was, obviously. Yeah, that's King Tubby at the controls, man. King Tubby Meets the Rockers Uptown style. Pablo, another one, he wanted to do business with Blood and Fire. You know, a friend of Dominic, who was the selector on Blood and Fire sound system when we toured with sound, with Jamaican DJs fronting, and me and Dom operating the decks, really fast operator on the decks, and I would just give him the tracks to play, you know, play this, play a minute of this, and then lift it up. I'll do a few samples on the keyboard while you flip the record and we play the dub, and we bring Hugh Brown or Rankin Joe or Trinity or Dillinger to DJ on the top. You know, I love those guys. I mean, okay, Rankin Joe, Hugh Brown, 2 of the greatest dancehall DJs of all times. Trinity again, sadly, died a few years back. Yeah. Dillinger as well. We toured the States with Trinity, Rankin Joe and Dillinger. And we never got invited back. I don't know why, but, you know, the promoter said, oh, we lost money. But I remember playing LA and seeing a crowd of people there, you know. Perhaps it was the wrong time, but things take time. I mean, they were talking about having Blood and Fire with the DJs and Shinehead doing a tour. I would have loved that. But, you know, things happen. I mean, me and Dom together, we toured. We did 3 shows in Japan with you, Roy, live on the mic, just doing A's and B's, you know, play a little bit of the A, then flip it for you, Roy, on the dub. You, Roy, said to me, you guys make me feel young again. You know, which, considering he was like in his 60s, I mean, his and my combined age was 125 or something, you know? So, you know, I mean, people like Rankin Joe, I mean, if in doubt with Rankin Joe, just get better dub, Studio 1, and play through side 1, and then flip it over and play side 2. Joe will DJ every track. You know, Hugh Brown's the same. You know, Trinity can sing as well. And Dillinger was just something else. Al Capone also, we went out with him a few times. One time we had 5 DJs on stage at Summer Jam in Cologne, Germany. And I'm just playing back with Dom's just operating. I'm playing back-to-back Studio One B-sides. We killed it, 4,000, 5,000 people in a big tent, And you got not only our 4 DJs, Joe, Hugh Brown, Joseph Cotton, also Danny Dredd as well, and Al Capone, 5 DJs passing the mic, murder. That, to me, them things, that's what I was doing it for, to get some vibes like that and also bring those guys back. Hugh Brown now, he can still tour. He still tours Europe. Rankin Joe still tours, and these were DJs who were supposedly past their sell-by date. But the thing is, they'd only been exposed before in Jamaican circles. Yeah, they hadn't been exposed in Europe. General Lee, producer, when we did the first tour of France, we did 21 sessions in 19 days or something like that. A couple of TV ones as well. And General Lee said, "Yo, you're making history here. Nobody, they haven't seen this before. 3 DJs, combination style at the same time."
You've sort of caused a domino effect with your work with Blood and Fire and all of that stuff, because other labels after Blood and Fire sort of took up that same formula, and it introduced generations to songs, just like with Tougher Than Tough. What it did, it introduced so many people, including myself, to songs that we never heard before,
That was the idea.
Yeah.
That was entirely the idea. So, it's great to have someone like you prove what I always hoped for. That's so great.
Oh.
Makes me feel good, man.